All right, so I want to go back for a post-analysis review and just clarify some things here, okay? So this is going to be video 4, and I just want to start off with who I am and who I'm not, okay? I'm not a law enforcement professional, a licensed investigator, behavioral analyst, psychologist, or legal expert. My videos are created for discussion and commentary purposes only and reflect my personal opinions, observations, and interpretations of publicly discussed information. Nothing in these videos should be presented as fact, accusation, or professional analysis. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and form their own conclusions. So again, I'm not a professional statement analyst. I am an amateur. I'm a private citizen. I have a day job. And this is something that I did study. I learned from Peter HYATT. I paid him to teach me. I went through his deception detection course, and I completed that. And to be honest, until the very final test, I have the packet all completed. This was years ago. It was just a tough time for me and my family. I had recently got married, and I went from 2 to 4 kids to then 5. Me, hers, and ours situation. And so it was just a lot on my plate. So I have regret not sending in my completed packet to Peter, and just put it off and put it off and put it off. And then unfortunately, a couple of years later, he passed away. So Peter HYATT is who I learned from. Peter HYATT. I am going to put a link in this video. Please check him out. He is, or was, God rest his soul, rest in peace. He's the godfather, in my opinion. He's amazing, amazing statement analyst. He did it for a living. His explanations are tremendous, and his understanding is vast. So I just wanted to explain that, who I am and who I'm not. So I also kind of want to explain what statement analysis is and what it's not. Okay. So statement analysis seeks to understand only the psychological reality of the subject. Okay. And that's really, really important. If you don't really understand what that is, just think about it. Statement analysis seeks to pull out the information within the statement and never injects information into the statement. So I just want to throw it out there that if you or I have an agenda, if we already have preconceived notions, any presupposition that doesn't align with statement analysis, any presupposition that is biased from the get-go, listening to statement analysis is going to be frustrating because it may or may not confirm the agenda or the bias that you have or I have. Employing statement analysis with a bias, with preconceived notions, with things rattle around in your head would be a mistake. And so statement analysis should be unbiased. It should be objective. It's disciplined and scientific listening. Okay. It's universal. It's repeatable. These are principles not talent. Okay. These are things that anyone can learn. They are universal in the aspect that anyone, big, small, dark, light, young, old, can learn them and apply them. And just like science, I mean, it is scientific. Okay, just like the scientific method is a universal method. And I do my very best to practice that. Part of the reason I'm doing this video is because a couple things in the analysis that I've done and in my videos are vexing me, and they're and I'm going to kind of talk a little bit more about that. But I have lost a little sleep because I'm wondering if I was biased at all, if there were things that I had heard that biased me to read into the statement rather than just letting the statement, rather than pulling out what the statement is saying. So I'm going to be doing a video explaining this in more depth, but I just kind of wanted to give a little cursory information there. So, all right, I want to get into a couple things when it comes to the analysis of Dylan's November 13th, 2022 statement analysis. So let me go ahead and jump over to this. Okay. Okay. So here we have, we're going to start off with talking about proper introductions and closeness and distance. So if Kaylee's, Maddie's, Xana's, and Ethan's names are not redacted anywhere in this interview that I analyzed, here are the introductions for each. So I wanted to kind of go over this, okay? That's a big if. I'm assuming that their names were never redacted in this interview, okay? And upon reconsidering and just really thinking about the analysis that I have gone over, I realized, wow, this is a major caveat in the analysis. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the redactions. I know I'm preaching to the choir for a lot of people who've been following. Anyone who has been following this case, apparently it's a major theme. So I don't want to spark any unnecessary emotions about that, but I feel very confident, and it clears my conscience to really talk about this. So if Kaylee's, Maddie's, Xana's, and Ethan's names are not redacted anywhere in the analysis, in the statement that I went over, in the transcript, and in the video, here are the introductions, okay? So how the subject introduces the four victims. So we're going to start with Maddie. So the subject says, Maddie and Kaylee came home from the club, and then we all went to bed, okay? The investigator asked about the time, and the subject said, I think they came home, like she stuttered, 1:32-ish, okay? This is in part one of my 3-part video series there. So the subject mentions Maddie's name all on her own, okay? We're going to talk a little bit more about all of them, but just breaking it down name by name. Kaylee. Maddie and Kaylee came home from the club, then we all went to bed. Same thing. So Maddie and Kaylee were mentioned first, were introduced together at the same time, fairly early in the statement. The investigator asked about the time, and the subject said, I think they came home like stuttered 1:32-ish. Again, this is in part one. So the subject mentions Kaylee's name all on her own as well. The subject did not share any conversation or interactions between the subject and Kaylee the entire statement. Regarding the account of the last night, morning at the subject location. Okay, so here's a note. The subject said at one point, and then I didn't open the door. I just called her name, and I called Xana, Kaylee, and Mogan on my phone, and then there's other things. But the important thing here is called her name, because I can hear a rebuttal in the back of my head. Well, wait a second. She said she called her name, so there was an interaction. Well, later the subject said, and then I called out to her, and there was no crying after that. I don't really know what happened after that. The investigator then said, so when you opened the door, you thought you heard Kaylee crying in the bathroom. And the subject said, yeah, but it could have been Xana, but I thought it was Kaylee at the time. So, however, I mean, this is pretty obvious, but I think it's good to kind of rehash this. We do not know whose name she called, or if she even called out a name. We do not know if she said, are you okay? Who's crying? Kaylee, Xana. it would be an assumption to conclude that the subject was referencing Kaylee's name in either instances. The subject would not say what she said, okay? She just merely said, I just called her name. She didn't quote that, okay? That's not a quote. All right, and we also have some caveats. I just, right? Okay, the subject would not say what she said, and we're not going to say it for her if she cannot say it, okay? All right, Xana, kind of some similar overlap here. And then I didn't open, however, Kaylee and Maddie were mentioned earlier. Later, Xana is mentioned. And this is where the subject mentions it. And then I didn't open the door. I just called her name and I called Xana. This is the first time Xana's mentioned. Kaylee and Mogan on my phone. And then that's it for that part. And this is covered in part 2 of my analysis, video 2. So this is when Xana's introduced. The subject mentioned Xana's name all on her own. At this time in the statement, according to the subject, this is when she called all their phones, which it is up to the investigators to confirm this claim. This is beyond the scope of the analysis, okay? Again, we're just trying to understand the psychological reality of the subject. We're not, this beyond my scope is to confirm whether it's true that she called all those people's phones. There's amazing, I know there's tons and tons of private citizens who are looking into all that. Okay, so however, the fact that Xana's name was not mentioned up until this point, okay, this is later than Maddie and Kaylee, okay? And the fact that Xana's name was not mentioned up until this point indicates relative to Kaylee and Maddie, increased psychological distancing, okay? So when we don't have any interaction with the subject and Xana throughout the statement, only an attempted call on the phone, okay? But again, I'm just going to put a little note in here. The subject says, and then I called out to her, and there was no crying after that. I don't really know what happened after that. The investigator responded, so when you opened the door, you thought you heard Kaylee crying in the bathroom? Subject, yeah, but it could have been Xana. But I thought it was Kaylee at the time. We do not know whose name she called, or if she even called out a name. We do not know if she said, are you okay? Who's crying? Kaylee, Xana. We don't know. It would be an assumption to conclude that the subject was referencing Xana's name here. The subject would not say what she actually said, and we're not going to say it for her if she cannot say it. A final note here, okay? The subject Dylan did not inform us regarding when Xana arrived to the house, and the investigator did not ask about this, okay? So that is a important note that I did not mention videos 1 through 3. Moving on to Ethan. Ethan is mentioned by the subject last in the statement. Okay, last. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So Peter Hyatt would share examples of statements where a witness or a potential criminal would not even mention the victim's name throughout the whole entire statement. And I did talk a little bit about this type of thing in videos 1 through 3, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit more. The less a subject is willing to say someone's name, or the longer it takes to introduce them, okay, what we're really looking for is proper introductions, okay? And I'm going to go over that in a little bit. But the fact that Ethan is mentioned last in the statement is very important, and I did not talk about this. So Ethan is mentioned in part 2 of my video. Ethan is introduced here. Subject. She says, Xana is dating Ethan, who was in the room with her. They're really nice too. From an introduction standpoint, Ethan is indicated to be the most distant psychologically from the subject. Previously in my conclusions, this is important, I had mentioned that Kaylee is indicated as primary target. Okay, as the primary target. Let me fix that. Upon further analysis, my conclusion about this weakened. Okay. Upon really thinking about this and going back through it, I am less confident about that conclusion. Ethan is a contender. Okay, Ethan is now a contender for primary target. Okay. The reason we heard Ethan's name is because of the investigator's question right here, investigator. What about for Xana or Maddie? Are there any guys that are an issue? Any girls that are an issue? Okay. So that's how it came about. This is how Ethan came about, was a specific question from the investigator. Okay. So it is unknown where, when Ethan would have been mentioned without the investigator prompting this response, if at all. Okay. We don't know that, but we do know that he came about. His name was uttered by the subject because of this question, and his name was uttered last. Okay. Now, on the other hand, the subject could have avoided using Ethan's name altogether by employing something like Xana's boyfriend was with her in her room. He stays with her. You know, these are my words here. Okay. These are my words. These are not the subject's. All right. So I'm just gonna put those in a, I don't know, in a gray or something. Okay. Can't really see that. It's a bad color to choose. Let's do a light blue. Okay. These are my words, not the subjects. But my point is that she did use his name. Okay. So the subject did say Ethan's name on her own in that sense. Said another way, the investigator did not have to ask a direct question, what is Xana's boyfriend's name, right? However, the fact that Ethan is named last is something to consider. And I put a little reminder for myself to cover the Sigma Chi party in purple. Okay, purple is a certain indication. I color code a certain indication here. So let's hop up to Sigma Chi. So remember, she dropped the we, okay? And I covered this, I believe, in video 1 and 3, but I kind of looked at this earlier and later in video 3. She dropped the we, I left. Okay, so she dropped the we, she couldn't say we, she didn't want to. She said there was a Sigma Chi party. Obviously, yes, we were drinking. I left to go to my friend's house, okay? A bad listener would go, oh, okay, so we went to the Sigma Chi party. No, if she cannot say it, we will not say it for her. And then much later, she said something that was one of the, out of all the statements, this is one of them that stood out the most. And it did stand out the most in the sense that, and I'm talking about sensitivity indications, just normal. Everything seemed fine, totally normal, nothing weird, out of place or suspicious. There was a lot of convincing here of normality. Okay. Again, you think about fiction. When we read a book or we're watching a movie, and there's narration and it says everything was normal on this beautiful summer day. Once we hear those words, we hear normal, we lean in, we are listening, we're paying even more attention because we know something abnormal is going on. And that kind of highlights, it helped me understand why this is so important. Okay. When we are recalling what happened, we're not labeling things as normal or not. we just recall them as they happened. Okay. And oftentimes we look back, we think back and we're like, what we thought was normal. And all of a sudden we're like, wow, that wasn't actually normal at all. But this is a strong indication of anything but, and this kind of goes to persuasion as well with the marriage example. If someone is asked, hey, how's your marriage? And they go, oh my gosh, your marriage is so tremendously, wonderfully, incredibly amazing. We intuitively just go, whoa, are you trying to trick me? Are you trying to fool me here, buddy? Or are you trying to fool yourself? What is going on there? We just naturally understand, wow, there's some sensitivity there. And again, it might not be for nefarious reasons. It might be because there was some really rough patches that they had just gone through, and now things are really good. So that's why the sensitivity was coming out. That's what they were thinking about. They were thinking about all those rough times, but they're also thinking about how much better it is. But at the same time, it could be just deception. Simple as that. Persuasion has a need to persuade. Okay. So anyway, this right here, the fact that she says Xana and Ethan were with me amongst all of this. No, it was just normal, like everything. Everyone seemed fine. Xana and Ethan were with me, and it was totally normal. Like there was nothing weird or out of place or suspicious. This is a huge red flag, and she is mentioning Xana and Ethan. Okay. So this helps support what we have been, what we've talked about with proper introductions and closeness and distance when it comes to Xana and Ethan. Okay. So that's why I feel it's very important to kind of go over this. Okay. So let's keep going. There is no dialogue with any of the victims, according to the subject. Okay. According to this statement, we are not given any dialogue. Okay. Underscoring psychological distancing with all 4 victims, okay? Regardless of order of when they're mentioned, okay? There are no proper introductions for the victims, okay? So here's where we're going to talk about this. Proper introductions should sound something like, my friend, whoever, Charlie, my friend, Benjamin, my roommate, Theodore, my sister or my brother, Jake. Okay. We have my denoting closeness, it's possessive. It's intimate, and however they're related, whether it be friend, mom, dad, roommate, whatever. So my friend and their name. Okay. That's what we're looking for with proper introductions. Okay, that's what we call proper introductions. She gives no proper introductions to any of the victims. Okay. Again, underscoring psychological distancing with all 4 victims. There's no concern displayed for the victims and what they endured. Underscoring psychological distancing with all 4 victims. I'd argue there's more concern for herself than the victims. Okay. So here's some counts just for my analytical brain. Kaylee's name is uttered 21 times by the subject. Maddie's name is uttered 11 times, and Mogan, which is apparently a nickname for Maddie, her last name, is uttered 6 times. Okay. So we can call that 17. We can call 11 and 6. All right. And I just want to talk about this a little bit. I went back and I looked at the analysis. I got like a little fruit fly or something. I went back and looked, and I couldn't see a pattern between the use of Maddie and Mogan. Okay. This is where I'm not skilled enough. Okay. Maybe there's something there, I just don't have really much to add to that. I did not think about this when I was going through it. I went back and reanalyzed it, and I don't know that I can say much about it. Okay. other than she says, she mentions, oh, Mogan is what we call her. And she says, sorry. Okay. But then she doesn't continue to use Mogan. She actually goes back to Maddie. And then she uses Mogan. So that's why I'm saying I can't really see much to talk about there. Xana's name is uttered 13 times. Okay, so we have 21, 11, and 6 for Maddie Mogan, 13 for Xana, which is even less, and then Ethan's name is uttered 3 times by the subject, the entire statement. Okay, so this just kind of shows a potential psychological priority of closeness. So again, I am contending my own conclusion. I'm less sure about my conclusion. The fact that Kaylee's voice and the noise and stuff, again, I'm an amateur. So I'm just going to be humble and say, hey, my conclusion there might be off. It might be both. I'm not sure. Okay. This is a really interesting thing to think about. And I wanted to clarify this too. The word we denotes unity. Okay. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So I'll switch the screen up a little bit here. So Peter taught an example of a specific example of sexual abuse or a rape scenario where the alleged victim was, hanging out with the guy, and she uses we. We went to this place, and then we went and parked the car, and then she explains that the sexual abuse or the rape occurred. And then after that, she uses we again. And Peter teaches that right there shows deception, because a victim would not use we after it happened. Psychologically, there is no more we. There is them. There is that bad man, that criminal, that horrible guy, whatever. But we will not be used. We is reflective of psychological unity. Okay. So let's go back to this. Hopefully I explained that well enough. The subject's utterances of we in a sentence without dropping we. Okay. Without dropping we, here were the 9 uses of we for Dylan. She said, obviously, yes, we were drinking. We do not know who we is here. Okay. She says, we just all went to bed. We have some persuasion here. Just is thinking about 2 or more things. Said another way, we only did the one thing, not the other thing. Not some of us, something like that. I'm not sure what she was thinking about, but just tells us that her brain was thinking about something else other than all went to bed. So, and we also don't know who we is. It was not explained. Here it's in red because this is a redacted portion. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But this was not super clear, and this was apparently before Dylan got home. She says, was the house we went to for a little bit. Okay. It's so redacted. I don't know who she's talking about. It was before the house. That's all I basically know. We also have, and then we all went to bed. She said it again, a little bit different. Okay. And then denotes a passage of time, missing information. We all went to bed. There was not a proper explanation of this, of who all was. Names weren't meant, all the names, all the 4 victims weren't mentioned, but we just don't know. We don't know who we is. Who is she uniting with? Okay, that's what we're trying to figure out. We don't know. Okay, so far we just don't know who we is. Maddie Moog, sorry, we call Moog Mogan is Maddie and Kaylee. Okay. So I don't know who we is, right? I'm not going to say it for her if she cannot say it. I don't know if we, we just don't know. Okay. We do notice though that call, this is like, in general, right? In general, this is not recounting a certain time. This is not historical present tense, recounting what had happened. This is not recalling memories. So this could be just a collective we, we as in everyone in school. I have no idea. Yeah, we all have our own rooms. So this is in reference to the roommates, okay? Again, this is a general, not a we at a specific time. Although this is nice here, have, instead of had, it's a present tense, which is good. What is it in reference to? It's in reference to our own rooms. Well, I believe later in the statement, it could be earlier, but we know that based on what she's saying, Ethan is dating Xana, and they share that room. So this is interesting that she said that. Okay. If we really want to drill this down here, there's a contradiction here. And so we appears to be her, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie. That's who we is, which would indicate further psychological distancing with Ethan. Okay. Yeah. 7. We, okay, so here's 3 right here. Okay. We lock the door and just go to bed. Who is we? Okay. Who is we? I don't know. It seems like it's with redacted. I can only go based on what the transcript and what I understand from this statement. I don't want to interpret it. I don't want to force stuff outside of this statement. No one's waking up and we have like a really bad feeling. Okay. How can she know what someone else has a really bad feeling? This is speaking for someone else. This is a concerning statement that we got to understand. We got to ask, how do you know that? She's not saying X person said to me, I have a really bad feeling. And I said, me too. That's not what she's saying. She's just saying we have like a really bad feeling. Well, this is not what we want to see. This is not likely to be true because I had a bad feeling. Simple. We also have like here. Okay. This is not, she's not saying a simple speaking for herself. I had a bad feeling. She is also caveating it, like a really bad, right? He said we needed to call the cops. Now, who is we? The important thing here is in her mind, she is united with someone, okay, who is not a victim. All right. This is part of why I concluded this is a huge reason. In fact, let me be clear. Huge reason why I concluded that there was likely someone else involved. Okay, there's someone else involved. it's because of her use of we. All right. Now, but again, her use of we or lack thereof for with the victims underscores severe psychological distancing with all four. Okay. So let's keep going here. I have a note on Xana here. Okay. On Xana. So there's a few things here we're going to go over. And I just picked really important parts regarding Xana. There's not a ton. But the investigator says, where's Xana? That's my floor. There's very cryptic words there. We're talking about who, right? She's a person. That's my floor, not she lives on the floor with me. And I covered this in my analysis. Very cryptic words there. Okay. Not going to say it for her, but to use that, there's a difference between things and people. Okay. So this is dangerously close to calling Xana a that. Okay. I'm not going to say it for her, but it's cryptic in that sense. It's concerning. It's a flag. Okay. It's a red flag. She also says my floor, right? There's some possessiveness there. Your floor, she's closest to the bathroom on my floor. Sorry about that. She's closest to the bathroom on my floor. So the bathroom is what I started really thinking about. In my conclusions, I said Xana's and Ethan's final moments were in Xana's bedroom. Again, I am kind of reconsidering that. I'm a little less sure. So I do feel like it's challenged upon reinspection, upon my own reinspection. So, and I hope to kind of show you why. Xana is dating Ethan, who was in the room with her. Okay. Who was in the room with her. Okay. Was. I don't know what she means, but was is past tense. Okay. So is what she's saying is that where's Xana now in her mind? I don't know. I don't know if she's saying this as if she's gone now and that's her last place. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say it for her, but it is something to consider. So when you open the door, you thought you heard Kaylee crying in the bathroom. Yeah, but it could have been Xana. But I thought it was Kaylee at the time. Xana and the bathroom. Okay, so we're seeing some connection here with the bathroom. Okay, who was in the room. All right, she's closest to the bathroom. Okay. Living room. You're at the living room. To the right is the bathroom and Xana's room. Okay, so bathroom and Xana are really close together here in the sentence. Guys, so I'm not making a declarative statement here. I'm just saying, there's an argument against my conclusion. So yes, I'm arguing with myself. Not funny. Okay, so you got the stairs that are here on the second floor. You got the bathroom here. Bathroom and Xana's room right around here. So we kind of have this as well. Okay. Subject, she, so Xana. This is an interesting thing here. She first wanted to say she, then she wanted to then clarify Xana. Okay. Not a huge note, but might indicate some even support our what we're noticing with psychological distancing with Xana specifically. Okay. She did clarify and she did say her name, which that's good. We want to see that. But she started with she. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this because it happened again. So Xana's in between the bathroom and the kitchen. Yes. Pretty much there's like a wall. So she's thinking about a wall now. She says yes. So Xana is in between the bathroom and the kitchen. Yes, pretty much there's like a wall and there's kitchen. Then there's a bathroom. Okay. So this is an interesting statement. Again, I'm an amateur, guys, and I'm sure a professional would delve into this a whole other level or 2 or 3. But this stands out to me. Okay. This makes me wonder if my conclusion is wrong. So Xana's on your floor, but she was upstairs with Kaylee and Mogan. No, she was in a room. She was in a room. Okay. Investigator, subject, and Ethan was in an investigator finished for her room, Xana's room as well. Okay. So I don't know if this would lean more towards Xana's final moment would be in her room. I'm hemming and hawing here. Okay. I want to be fair. I want to be objective and not just show you what I think. I want to show you, I just want to show you the truth. Okay. It could go both ways. Whoops, that's the investigator. So we're going to leave that alone. Later in the statement, Xana, after there was a break, and then the investigator came back with Dylan, he asked her about something that they had found out. And so they get back in the room, and Dylan says, and then when Kaylee was at Winco, Xana, so she corrected herself again. This is twice where she went to say she instead of Xana. Okay. Might indicate it was more comfortable for her to say she than it was to say Xana. Okay. All right. So we're going to change the subject here, and I want to talk about they. Okay. They is a big one. They is a big one. That word in this statement, if you know, you know, really got me, threw me for a loop. So let's go into it. Okay. The investigator says, okay, and you didn't see anybody come downstairs. Did you hear anything else? The subject says no, but adds on her own accord, I don't even know how they got in. Okay. I think it's tempting to go, oh my gosh, there's a they. But we have to understand the context of how this is happening. She is not saying this in a reliable way. Okay. She is not saying, I saw 2 men break in. Simple. I saw. It's declarative. It's very likely to be true. It's what we look for truthful statements. Okay. This is not a truthful statement. Okay. Number one, did you hear anything else was the question. The investigator is asking, and you didn't see anybody come downstairs. Did you hear anything else? This is not in relation to how they got in. Okay. She's being uncooperative with the investigator. She's talking about what she doesn't know. The investigator doesn't want to know what she doesn't know. The investigator wants, and the greater public, in this scenario, it's crystal clear. She is one of the few and maybe the most important witness and or testimony or her experience could make or break this case. She is so vital to understanding what happened to these four. She was, based on her own statement, she was in the house when, as she said, everything happened, or everything, or the thing, I can't remember, but thing happened. So I don't even know how they got in. This has a lot of problems with it. They should not be something that we run with. That's my opinion. We should strongly question the use of they. And personally, I put this in deception category. Okay. She continues on and says, we're usually pretty good about locking doors. So she goes into what often happens. Usually stands out. Normal, right? Again, we go back to normal. This should be same thing as normal. Should be purple. We're usually, she's talking for numerous people. She's not saying I. We're usually pretty good, caveated, about locking doors. And we've never had problems before. Well, we know after looking at the whole statement, that's absolutely not true. According to Dylan, in this statement, they've come home and the door was wide open. Okay? So that doesn't make sense. And then we have another addition here that she offered up. Like, caveat, it was in the past, just she's thinking about two different things. She's thinking about something else other than really random. Not random, maybe. Don't know. I'm not going to say it for her. But we wonder about just. Like it was just really random. Again, this is she trying to say that she's omniscient and she knows whether it was random or not? How can she possibly say that? This, looking at the full context of this, looking at the investigator's question, the no, and then all this other stuff, they should not be relied on. I have a strong opinion about that. Okay, it's my opinion. Yeah. Okay, this is something else that I missed. Regarding social media posts. Okay, this was early in the analysis. When I first started, the analysis, I really honed in on when he began with, so tell me what you know. This was before that. This was in all a bunch of redacted area. Okay, but I'm going through it again, and I just think it's really important to talk about. And I'm sure there's people that have wondered about this. The investigator asked, do you have any pictures, any video, anything like that, any social media posts? Okay, this is not a specific question. All right, this is not a specific question. What, if you really wanted to take this question to its fullest meaning and its actual meaning, he's asking any pictures, any video, anything like that, any social media posts, period, end of story, in all time. This is not specific. Do you have any pictures, any video, anything like that, any social media posts today, over the last 24 hours? He's not being specific. Okay, so there's definitely a caveat about that. But the subject simply says no. Dylan says no. So I have some text here. The subject, we presume, is innocent, has no guilty knowledge, and has a measure of willingness to help assist law enforcement in identifying and apprehending the criminals who murdered 4 roommates of hers. Okay, no here, in its absolute sense, would mean that the subject doesn't have any pictures, video, social media posts, or anything like that. Okay, viewing the evidence of this claim is outside the scope of statement analysis. All right. However, this would be something that investigators should have investigated and hopefully did. If it were to be found that she had any pictures, video, or any social media posts related to the roommates, the house, etc., then no here would be a clear lie. Okay? And just from a human aspect, if she had any pictures, video, or social media posts related to the roommates, within the last 24 hours, the last week, I mean, really, even the last year, it would be a very bad sign. Okay, sorry, I'm hopping all over the place here. I suck at just reading stuff, and my mind goes all over the place. Any picture, post, video within the last 24 hours, last week, even the last year would be helpful for investigators, I would think. A simple no here indicates a lack of cooperation, which is exactly the opposite of our presumption of her innocence. Okay, and a presumption of her willingness to help. They go hand in hand. So, upon further review, this was a pretty big red flag right from the get-go. Okay, and I didn't talk about it. That's my fault. Talking about it now. Okay, so a note on redactions. So this is a major redacted area in the analysis. This is about 2 minutes 7 seconds to 2 minutes 36 seconds in the video, in the transcript, and I didn't talk about this much. Okay. And I just want to say about the redactions here. I know redactions are frustrating. They really put a huge caveat on my analysis and what we can glean from it. Because again, the proper introductions, I mean, there's a huge caveat. If none of those 4 names are redacted, okay, well, that helps. But I mean, I don't know that. I don't know what exactly is redacted. I don't know if certain names are redacted. I don't know if a couple words were redacted as well. Okay, so I'm going to we're going to read this together. The redactions in this statement are a hindrance and a caveat my analysis in terms of introductions, timeframes, etc. In part 1, I didn't analyze this portion due to redactions, talking about this. However, we do have a portion that here is very important. Okay, so it's right here. Subject was the house we went to for a little bit. We talked about the we right here earlier. And then passage of time, it was just me, like who came home, and then redacted later. Okay. 2 passages of time, it was just me. Okay. We talk about just. She's thinking about someone or something else other than me. It was just me. Like, okay? So this is what I'm talking about. After was the house we went to for a little bit. We don't know whose house this was due to redactions. Dylan indicates a passage of time with and then. It was just me, like who came home. Has some sensitivity indications that we need to unpack. I came home is a simple sentence. It was just me, like who came home, has unnecessary words. It was just me denotes possible persuasion here and an indication that 2 or more were being thought about when employing just. Also, like is a caveat denoting the indication of possible deception here. She couldn't commit to, it was just me who came home. Okay? It was just me, like who came home. Okay? Again, I came home. It's simple. There's no caveats. There's no persuasion. Truth doesn't need reinforcement. Okay? We wonder about the truthfulness of this because she throws in these indicators, these extra indications. All right? And then she indicates a passage of time. Okay? After this. We do not know what this is in reference to due to the redactions. In terms of later. Did someone else come home later? We don't know. I've had people reach out to me to try to understand what the redactions are covering. Some that say, hey, we know what these redactions are, The problem with this is we don't know the extent of the redactions. Unless I can have someone tell me in maybe authority or something like that, some sort of proof that we know exactly who and what's redacted. Do we only know that names were redacted? I don't think that's clear. Were there other precious words that we don't have? Because this is not crystal clear, we don't have that assurance. It would be improper to draw any conclusion based on best guesses. I am simply staying away from speculation. I want to analyze the facts and the integrity of the statement to reach respectable and supported conclusions. Okay. So I know this is kind of a lot of housekeeping. Some of this is neat. Some of this is kind of boring. Some of this is like yada, yada, yada. Okay. CYA, as one of my mentors used to say. You can Google that if you don't know what that means. But no, seriously, I want to provide the truth as best to my knowledge. Is very, very important to me. As I was explaining to someone else today, one of my biggest fears is deceiving people. I don't want to deceive anyone, and I do feel a strong burden to honor Peter Height's training, his name, his work. And I don't want to do anything that could possibly disparage him or his training. Any issues with my analysis is not a reflection of him. It's not a reflection of the deficiencies in statement analysis. It's merely and simply a reflection of the deficiency of me and my mind and my brain. And I have a personal life. I have a day job. I have a lot going on, and I do the best I can to provide the statement analysis done properly to the best that I can. So I appreciate y'all. I'm almost to an hour, so that's perfect. That's what I was shooting for. I hope this helps. And I'm not sure exactly yet who I am going to analyze next. I did look into a couple others. I looked into Bethany a little bit more. I looked into Lakeland. I've gotten lots of recommends for others. I'm not sure yet, but look out for my next video. And I hope you all have a blessed day. Yeah, God bless.